that a lot of the time we're going to work with our light body and our light system a lot more. That's data, that's information, that's, specifically knowing what's going on within us and this sort of thing. Whereas the sound system is how it makes us feel and what we do because of it afterwards and these sorts of things. Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to Going Dotty. I'm Tracy Egan, and in today's video, as we drill into some of the core pillars of understandings of Going Dotty and what all of this is about, I want to share with you the basic educational system and structure that we're going to be working with. So let's crack into it. So we've mentioned before that we have an energy body, and that this energy body within this frame of work and this context is the emotional body and the mental body of an individual that's they're running into each other. When we're looking at energetic systems and structures, we talk about, the physical body, the emotional body, and the mental body are the first three layers of our energetic form, of which there are 7, which I will go back into again. And what we find in the world today is that people's emotional body and their mental body are mixed and amalgamated into one. And that we see this in the toxic personality of an ego or the toxic characteristics of a narcissist. And what the ego and the narcissist are embodying is a negative energy body. So when we're talking about the energetic system and the energetic structure, essentially what we are saying is that the physical body is like a prism for the light that we are. So I'm not going to try and knit together the pseudoscience with the actual science and the spirituality, because that's not the purpose of this. But the concept is that we are all beings of light. We are all held within physicality, within this manifestation of a physical body. And that our physical body is the prism that allows the light that we are to fracturate through the system and manifest as our form. So when we're looking at this, the structures that I utilize is the structure of light and the structure of sound. So there's common factors between these two elements. There's a 3-dimensional nature and structure to our spiritual body and our spiritual physicality, if you want to put it that way. So there's a lot of overlays or similarities between the reality of our biology and the symbolism of our spirituality. So, science verifies that energy exists as either a light particle or a sound wave. And similarly, when it comes to our energy body, we both play within the mold of the light system that we have access to, but also the sound system that we're caught in. And I think the sound system element of it is something that isn't really talked about enough within the industry. If you're caught in a loop, if you're stuck in a record tape, or it's like if you have the album of life and you're playing certain songs over and over again, they're looping through your system. It doesn't really matter how much conscious work you do or how much light body energy work that you do if you're stuck in the wrong sound wave, if you know what I mean. And that's more to do with your resonance. So that's why it's useful to have a grasp on both the light body system, but also the sound wave structure. And that's why we take a 2-pronged approach to looking at the energy body system so that we're able to tackle it from both sides. And this binary nature of our spiritual form comes up again and again. When we are talking about living and being, in a 3rd-dimensional construct, and a 3rd-dimensional conscious construct, which we will talk about in another core pillar video within this series, we bring to the table the awareness that our spiritual energy, body, system, structure and form falls into 2 categories. We have the masculine element of our system and we have the feminine element. So again, we have this binary nature, this duality again, these polarizations that we have to play with in a harmonization to bring it all into a unity. So just like we have light and sound, we also have the masculine and the feminine. And within the spiritual context, we are one dimension of embodied consciousness. So if we're in a 3rd-dimensional state of consciousness and we are occupying one of those dimensions or layers or spaces, then we only have 2 to play with. So if you are trying to get out of a low vibration or a toxic environment or dynamic, you have to raise your conscious awareness, bring another layer of conscious awareness in, which is known as the 4th dimension, which is a conceptual place. When we're talking about this in terms of spirituality, when we're talking about this in terms of your conscious awareness, your conscious development, we're talking about the conceptual inner world, the inner spaces. We're not trying to overlay it with some kind of, scientific 4th dimension. And there's a lot of language being used at the moment about the transition into the 5th dimension. But the 5th dimension is a conceptual place where your conscious conceptual structures operate differently. And we move out of a duality-based thinking system happening in a 3rd dimensional environment by bringing in a new layer and level of consciousness, which is known as the 4th dimension. And the 4th dimension is an overlay and a space for perception and understanding and consideration and awareness and thinking and reprogramming and reconditioning and evolving the mind and healing internally, bringing things into a completion. Because when you're not healed or whole, when you're not together within yourself, you're stuck in that dualistic mentality of a 3rd dimensional conscious construct, which operates largely in judgment, right or wrong, good or bad, me or not me. And this is where we find the ego, who is always, the front and center of its own existence. It's the only thing in its existence because it is operating in a 3rd dimensional conscious construct. It can only see itself. It's very dense and it's not able to see the duality around it. Therefore, the duality within it plays outside of it and creates havoc in the world for everybody that it is engaging with. So I recommend that you go have a look at the Ego series if you want to go, that I've done previously, if you want to have a little bit more of an understanding of that. But I'm just trying to bring all of these things, it's like dough, we're just trying to bring everything into the mix and weave it all together at this point. So when we're wanting to break down the spiritual system and structure for ourselves in a conceptual model, with 3 dimensions of spiritual self available to us. When we're working within the light system, we break this down into the colour spectrum, the colours of the rainbow, which are reflected in the chakras and in the aura. So if you're not familiar with the chakras and the aura, I'm not really going to go into it in this video, but they are an ancient traditional Indian system of working with the energy bodies and the energy centre. So anybody who's familiar with yoga would be very familiar with the chakras, your chakras, as some people refer to them as. But these are 7 energy centres within the body that align along the spinal column, and they are each represented by one of the 7 colours of the rainbow. So we can use the chakras to work through the inner self and the core of our inner being. And then the corresponding element of that would be the 7 layers of your aura or your energy body or your energy field. And again, I'll go through all of these in sufficient detail to give you an awareness and an understanding of what each one of them is and how it interlays within your life. And then the third dimension to your spiritual body and form would be my contribution towards the field at this time, which is the 7 states of being. So you have the inner being that you are, you have the external world that you interface with and through, and then you have the sum total of everything that's going on. And as I say, I'll go through all of these, that's 21 in total. I'll go through all of these, I'll overview them in oneer, and then we'll go through each one at a time so that you have the opportunity to learn about these in a little bit of detail or as much detail as you would like to go into. The other element of this that we'll be going through is the sound system. Now, the sound system isn't something, I primarily use the light spectrum, but the sound system is an inherent counterpart to that. And when we're talking about the sound system, a lot of that is going to be speaking through the medium of music. So just as we use, colour to talk about sound, and there's 7 colours within the rainbow and the light spectrum, there's 7 notes within the scale when we're talking about music. And when you're talking about music and you're talking about the sound system, you're talking about resonance, like what are the beat of the drums of your feet, what are they actually moving to? What is your actual resonance? And if you want to understand what I mean by resonance, in the world nowadays on the internet, if you look at any sensitive topic that exists, and there's plenty of them right now, and you see a variety and a spectrum of comments, left wing, right wing, top tail, bottom tail, everywhere, everything exists now, it's great. All of those have a different resonance, the way that they feel, the sort of the reverberations that you get from reading a message. If somebody leaves a comment or something like that and it's very rigid and it's full of hate, the feeling of that's your resonance. That's to do with the sound system that they're in. That doesn't have as much to do with the light system that they are embodying. So that's why we need to understand the two together, because if you take one at a time, or if you just take one without the other, you're sort of only working with half of it. But most of this work is going to be focused on the light body, and we're going to be working with the sound system to a natural extent as and when it is relevant. But so much of the sound system really, it comes out, through the work. The sound system is essentially something that you naturally reattune over time. You change to a certain extent the patterns that you choose to embody, the resonance that you hold yourself within, and the way that you allow yourself to flow. So the sound system is, in one sense, much simpler to deal with, I would maybe suggest, but it's also a slower burner, and it's the one that doesn't come up as much. So I would suggest that a lot of the time we're going to work with our light body and our light system a lot more. That's data, that's information, that's, specifically knowing what's going on within us and this sort of thing. Whereas the sound system is how it makes us feel and what we do because of it afterwards and these sorts of things. So we're talking about the two coming in together, and we'll work with them in the way that I find to be most appropriate. And then with my approach to working with it, you will be able to move yourself slowly, incrementally, but consistently through your system and structure. And this is how we change our field. This is how we morph through the time and space, because you can't be a new version. Not that you would want to be a new version, but you can't be a healed, whole version of yourself if you're holding on to old thought patterns, if you insist on replaying out the same structures that exist within your field. But this is the fundamental that we're going to keep on coming back to. You have an energy body, you have a spiritual body, you have an energy body, you have an energy system, you have an energetic form. And when we look at it in this way and manner, we can suggest, the things that occur when their prism is blocked, or when there is, a bad file in it, or whether, there's something in the system that is getting in the way. So in working with our energetic system, having an awareness of the system and having the tools to navigate our way through the system, well, then we're able to work with it an awful lot better. So that's it for today's video, just giving a very brief overview on what the energy body structure is and these sorts of things. I hope you found the video useful. Please leave a comment below with any thoughts that you have. Like the video, get in touch, and I will talk to you guys again.